Okay, so I did pretty much extensive research on this case. I've listened to almost every news video that's out there, and I've listened to a few of other people's synopsis of the case. This is Lydia Abrams. Here are more photos of Miss Abrams. She really cared about the way she looked and the way she presented herself. Those last two people are Keith Hopper and Diane Fetter, and they're very important to this case, especially Keith. Keith was her recent, quote unquote, fiance. According to him, he says that he engaged to her, but he also couldn't tell them where he bought the ring at. Yeah, and that's Diane Fetter. She is actually a law enforcement officer. I believe she might be FBI. I know it's a federal law enforcement that she's involved with. She claims that she does not even like Keith Hopper, but there is actually um, information out there linking them romantically while um, Lydia was still alive. And the reason that's important is because I'll get into it later, but basically Lydia gives away half of her estate to Keith and gives control to Keith and Diana. This is a very crazy case. This is probably going to be much more than one video. She went missing on the 6th of June in 2020 from Riverside County, California. She's listed as endangered missing. She's a white female, 69 years old, 65 when she went missing. She's 5'5", 130 pounds. She had on a black and turquoise windbreaker jacket and a yellow shirt, blue jeans, and 4 rings on her right hand. She's a Caucasian female, like I mentioned in the other video. Unless you're blind, you will see that from her. Sorry, you will see that from her pictures that I showed you. And I'm sorry that I even said that, because I'm sure that blind people actually do watch and listen to these type of cases, and I don't mean to, um, come across as rude to any demographic out there. Also, she has blonde hair, blue eyes. She has a surgical scar on her abdomen and a scar on her lower back extending from hip to hip. Her ears are pierced. Her nickname is Dia. Dia was last seen on her Bona Vista Ranch, California. It's a 117-acre property she owned east of Idyllwild in Riverside County, California on June 6, 2020. She has never been seen or heard from again. Dia was the widow of Clem Abrams, a wealthy Jolla, California developer who died in 2018. At the time of her disappearance, she was involved in a court battle with her and Clem's 2 adult children, Carissa Brett Abrams and Clinton Karcher Abrams, over Clem's estate. Clem had nominated the children to act as executors and trustees of her estate and of his estate. And what was going on was they were actually separated, Dia and Clem. And there's very long, drawn out legal proceedings that went along with this. And they were separated. So he basically gave much to the kids. And we're going to get into that later. So Clem had a very, very solid prenuptial agreement, and at the time of her disappearance, Dia was attempting to have her 1984 prenuptial agreement with Clem invalidated. The agreement, which was to govern their assets both in life and following either of their deaths, provided that Clem's income would remain his separate property, and that Dia's income would remain her separate property. Dia did not work during their 34-year marriage and did not accrue any significant income or property of her own, while Clem's assets grew by the millions. And some of the reasons that she gave for disavowing the prenuptial agreement is that she was pregnant at the time and she felt as though she was forced to sign it. So when Clem did die, Dia inherited some of the properties as well as a marital trust. At the time of her disappearance, in addition to trying to get the prenuptial agreement invalidated, Dia was seeking $6.7 million from her late husband's estate to fund the marital trust. Crisara and Clinton had both filed in opposition to their mother's petition. Dia had kept some of the assets in trust. When the trust was initially established in 2016, the beneficiaries in the event of her death or incapitation were to be Carissa and Clinton. An unsigned partially handwritten clause was added to the trust in 2018, excluding the children as beneficiaries. It said, "Truster leaves nothing but her love and affection to her son Clinton Abrams and daughter Crisara Adams." So at this time, they were having a very bad legal battle, and it was to the point where the kids were threatening, only for legal reasons, to take her only working vehicle away. It was just really bad. So I'm sure with the urging um, of Hopper, her boyfriend at the time, he says fiance, he put the clause in that he would be getting half, and I'm going to get into that next. So just 15 days prior to her 2020 disappearance, Dia restated the trust, transferring ownership of the Bonita Vista Ranch and two other properties into it, and naming Keith Hopper as a trustee and the beneficiary of the estate. A second trustee was also named. This was Diana Fetter, a neighbor who lived 10 miles from Bonita Vista Ranch and helped Dia manage her properties. Photos of both of them are posted in the case summary, which I showed you. Hopper and Fetter took over the trust and began co-managing the Bonita Vista Ranch after Abrams went missing, and Hopper filed a power of attorney document claiming control of the ranch. According to Fetter, Dia had not wanted her children to ever become trustees of her property. Hopper stated he and Fetter planned to make the Bonita Vista Ranch into an animal reserve, and that this was also Dia's wish. They actually started doing some Airbnbs too. Um, Hopper lived with Abrams at the time of her disappearance and claims to be her fiance, and he was also the last person known to have seen her. He said he had lunch with Abrams on the afternoon of her disappearance and last saw her at 2:30 p.m. when he went to mow the grass and do other ranch work. When he returned at 7:30, he said Abrams was gone, leaving her purse, cellular phone, keys, and Ford pickup truck behind. The next day, Hopper notified Isidro Garcia, a longtime ranch employee, that Abrams was missing and said friends and neighbors were searching for her. That same day, her disappearance was reported to the police and a search and rescue operation was launched. By the time Hopper had left and driven his recreational vehicle RV out of state to New Mexico and Colorado for what he said was business, he returned to the ranch later in the week. So something I need to point out is that he had originally said the reason that he had left was because Dia wanted to leave because she was afraid of her children, specifically Clint. And that they had already planned the trip, and that's why he went on it. He later changed his story, saying that he had to go take care of some tax issues. Police searching for Dia via air with helicopters noticed marijuana greenhouses at the Sky High Ranch, a rental property she owned about a mile and a half west of the Bonita Vista Ranch. As a result, they got a search warrant, searched the Sky High Ranch, and seized more than 2,300 marijuana plants, 357 pounds of processed marijuana. Marijuana grow operations are common in Riverside County. Garcia stated he didn't think Dia's disappearance had anything to do with the grow operation at Sky Ranch. He stated she never went there. The police served a search warrant at the Bonita Vista Ranch a few days after Dia's disappearance, describing it as a possible homicide. The evidence included a tan bed sheet, a Band-Aid, toilet paper, all stained with possible blood, two spent casings with F and REM markings, two handwritten letters, and a Netgear router. In subsequent days, law enforcement traveled to New Mexico, impounded Hopper's RV, and removed a section of the front driver's seat as evidence. They searched Hopper's storage business in New Mexico, but the list of evidence has not been publicly released. It is worth noting that Hopper has a 2000 conviction for domestic violence. He was initially charged with sexual assault and kidnapping, both felonies in the case, but pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault after his victim refused to testify against him. In 2011, he was found guilty of misdemeanor sexual assault for groping two women on a snowmobile tour and ordered to register as a sex offender. In 2014, he was sentenced to 4 months in jail for probation violation. All of his convictions are out of Colorado. Following Dia's disappearance, her children filed a petition seeking to have Hopper and Fetter removed as trustees of their mother's estate. Their petition asked the court to appoint instead a neutral third party to manage Dia's trust and estate. Their petition asks to appoint instead a neutral third party to manage Dia's trust and estate. So this is the end of part one. Part two is coming next. So now this is part two of Lydia Abrams' missing millionaire mother, and that's her ranch. I know it's not a close up, but there's 5 buildings on the property. That's just one of the properties that she owned. So we're gonna get into part two here, where I'm gonna continue with the details of her disappearance. There'll probably be a part three as well, where I'll go over more um, of my own opinions and possible theories. Um, as you can say, she's a beautiful woman. So Clinton and Carissa petition stated Hopper has refused to allow Dia's family to inspect the trust and get an accounting of it, and the mortgage on the Bonita Vista Ranch has not been paid since August of 2020. That the mortgage on another of Dia's properties has not been paid since June of 2020. That Hopper and Fetter, which I mentioned before, are romantically involved and have been since before Dia's disappearance, and that police were investigating Hopper as a potential perpetrator of the crime or crimes that led to Dia's disappearance. Crisara and Clinton also claimed in the petition that Dia had left a note behind when she disappeared, claiming she was afraid for her life. So I also want to state, in everything I watched, the son does not seem guilty at all, but Hopper tries to throw the blame to the kids. And it's very suspicious. So, in a media interview Clinton gave on a 1 year anniversary of his mother's disappearance, he said Dia was not engaged to Hopper or anyone at the time she went missing. This was the first interview either of Dia's children had granted to the press. And by granting it, Clinton was acting against the advice of the Riverside County Sheriff's Office. He said he believed his mother had been murdered. He also believes that it's by more than one person because of how well it has been orchestrated. This next information is also very important to note that 2 days before Christmas in 2021, there was a suspicious death on the ranch, that of Jody Newkirk, who had been working there as a horse handler since early August of that year. It was reported that she died in an ATV rollover accident, but when police responded to the scene, they noticed the woman had unexplained injuries. Newkirk's death remains under investigation and no one has been charged. It's not clear if it has any connection to Dia's disappearance. An entry in her diary from weeks before her death indicated she was in a romantic relationship with Hopper and planned on ending it. And there's a few news segments on this, and she was clearly in a relationship with this guy, and she liked him a lot. In March of 2023, um, after a 2 year court battle over Dia's estate, the parties reached a negotiated settlement. The settlement would establish a monetary reward for the arrest and conviction of those responsible in Dia's disappearance. It's $300,000, and her properties will be placed for sale. If her remains are not located by 2025, 50% of her estate will go to Clinton and Crisara, and the other 50% will go to Hopper. Dia's case remains um, unsolved, and foul play is suspected. Um, so another important thing to note is that Hopper has actually tried to sell the ranch. He messaged a real estate person saying that he had the ranch for about 15 years. He thought it was about worth over 5 million, and that he was wanting to place it on the market to sell it. And what this has done is the kids actually went to court and they've got him evicted from the property because he's been living there until now. He's been supposedly taking care of the ranch, but he's not paying the mortgage and not doing everything that he's supposed to do. Now I'm going to get into more reasons why I believe Hopper is the culprit in this. So, the day that Dia went missing, she told Hopper she had something very important to tell her, and he kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and people believed that she was going to break it off with him. Now, there's an unexplained time of about 6 hours when this could have happened, from when they supposedly went to lunch until he started telling people that she was missing. There's like a 6 hour span. And it's very possible that because he was able to leave that next day, the police did search, but it wasn't a search where anyone was suspicious of anything. Other people were searching too, and he was one of the people searching, and so was Diane Fetter. They could have said that they searched in the RV, and the police may not have gone in there, and that's where Dia's body could have been. And I believe that because he then took the RV for like a 12-hour ride to Arizona from Colorado. And even though they did go down to Montana and other places and, get the RV, and they don't know every single spot that he stopped at. And I believe that's where her body is. Now, the son, um, Clinton, believes that it's buried somewhere on the property, which is possible because it is a huge, sprawling amount of acres and property and nooks and crannies where a body could be hidden. And he could have done that in the 6 hours as well. Um, I'm not sure. Have you heard about this case? What do you think about it? Please put in the comments what you think about it. So there's also a video out that was released very recently. One of the most recent things to come out about the case, where the image I'm showing you is basically all you get, and it's her walking up to her neighbor's house, with freshly baked cinnamon rolls. The neighbor had cancer and she just wanted to eat cinnamon rolls, so Dia actually cooked them for her and brought them over there. And that's the last time that she was really known to be alive. We don't know for sure if they went to lunch together, her and Hopper. Another important thing to note is that there is actually 5 other people missing from this area. She's not the only one. So at one point, there were 6 people missing, but 2 of those people have since been found. The 6 missing are Roy Profagel, 52, a hiker missing since March 4th, Lydia Abrams, 65, missing since June 7th, Melissa Lane, 41, since the 15th, and Rosario Garcia, 73, since July. And this was in 2020. So these are old cases as well, and 2 of those people were found. So the whole serial killer thing was being thrown out there, but I do not think it applies to Lydia at all. I believe that Lydia is the most common reason why she would be missing and it's because she was murdered by Hopper. And I believe that strongly. Everything that I've researched, his past, the fact that he then tried to sell the home, him lying about why he left town. And why would you leave town when everyone's searching? Why would you leave the second day? Um, you know, his original statement saying that he, um, him and Lydia had already planned on leaving because she was scared of her kids and scared they were going to hurt her and take her car away and do all these things to her. And supposedly there is a note out there of her saying she was scared for her life, but it may have been from Hopper, according to the kids. Um, you know, Hopper did a really good job in his interviews of making it appear as though the kids had something to do with her. There are many videos out there that I watched. I believe he's been interviewed 2 or 3 times, and um, he has a couple long interviews. The kids have a couple long interviews, and even so, Lydia was really estranged from her family, even from her sister. But when you listen to these people speak, it's all going back to Hopper. Um, you know, even though the kids and her had a tumultuous, can't pronounce the word, relationship, there was not enough there for them to harm them because they had all the money from the dad. Um, that's why there was a lawsuit going on with the back and forth because Lydia really didn't have access to cash. That's why she started doing the Airbnb, um, and the Airbnb, um, I believe, is one of the things that led to the California Grow operation. So let me know what you think about this case. Is there anything I missed? And if I did, I'll make another video about it.